So Kling AI just dropped their version of Nano Banana Pro for image and video. They're calling it their Kling O1 Omni model. And I've had a chance to test it out and run it through various cinematic frameworks. And what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you some of the results of that testing. And we'll find out whether or not this model can truly be a Nano Banana alternative. So with that said, let's jump right into the video. So what I'm going to do is quickly run through some of the testing I've done using O1 image and O1 video. And the main purpose of this testing is to see if it is a true Nano Banana Pro competitor, and if not, to call out what improvements Kling O1 needs in order to be truly competitive in this space. Because not only do we have Nano Banana Pro, we also have Dream 4 Edit, there's Quinn Edit, and I'm also seeing some interesting things about Z image, but I've not had a chance to test it out yet. And for starters, if you want to see how this thing works from start to finish, Kling has put together a user guide, and if you click on that, it takes you to this guide that goes over each and everything that the model is supposed to do. But essentially what you should know is that it functions pretty much exactly like Nano Banana Pro. In fact, you can use the same Nano Banana Pro prompts with Kling O1 Omni image, and that's pretty much exactly what I've done in my testing with this new model. So let's also look at this interface. If you see right here, this is how you switch between the Omni image generation model and the O1 Omni video generation model. And we're going to start with the image generation model, since that's the very first thing I tested. As you can see right here, it changes to O1 image, and you also have the option of doing 1K standard definition or 2K high definition. So that's the first difference between this model and Nano Banana Pro. It does not have 4K outputs at this time, but it does have all the various aspect ratios that you'd expect, and you can output up to 9 generations at a time. If we take a look here, this is where you're going to upload your image or your elements, and it says upload 1 to 10 reference images and add, delete, modify, blend, or stylize them through natural language prompts, or recreate a new image with just one click. Alternatively, you can directly input prompt and the model will perfectly depict the image you need based on the prompt. So it's telling you that it pretty much does the exact same thing that Nano Banana Pro does. And if you wanted to create an image with Nano Banana Pro, I believe it falls back to the Google Imagen 4 model. And this is telling you right here that not only does the O1 model function like Nano Banana Pro, but it also can create images. Now I want to show you this also, this elements thing, because they have some presets that you can use right here for elements. You know, if you wanted to add a sword or a tank or a black warhorse, and you also have something to where if you upload your own things that you want to reference. So basically this is a place for you to store your elements, and they've got them categorized as characters, animals, items, costumes, etc. I've only uploaded everything via inputs that are on my local drive, so I won't be covering elements in this video, but just wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like. Now for my first test, I wanted to do a simple pose change to have this woman standing with her feet together, hands down by her side. This is a basic prompt that I normally do with these models to test how well they follow instructions, but unfortunately this image got censored by Kling, and Kling is usually a little bit more loose with their moderation, so I was very surprised at that. There's nothing particularly crazy about this image other than the fact that she has some big legs and wide hips. So again, very surprised to run into this by Kling AI, and I did not test this with Nano Banana Pro because obviously if it's failing with Kling AI, then you could make a pretty educated guess that it's going to fail with Nano Banana Pro as well. And if you don't believe me, just hang on because we're going to get to that in just a moment. But I do want to be completely transparent about all of the testing that I'm doing, because even though I am a Kling AI creative partner, it's not in my best interest or my audience's best interest to be simping for these models when they could be doing better. So I moved on to my next test using a different reference image. Again, nothing crazy about this image other than that the woman has big legs and wide hips. And this turned out to be one of those fail, not fail scenarios, meaning that it failed the first image but actually generated the second. And I really don't even get why this is an issue. If you are a human that's been living on this earth long enough, you know that there are women who actually look like this. I've actually dated women who are shaped exactly like this. So really don't understand the problem with all of the AI censorship going on around these type of reference characters with this type of body shape. And for the most part, the Chinese have been a bit more lax about this. They still need some improvement, but the American AI companies are still in denial of this. As you can see, I tried this with Nano Banana Pro via free pick, And again, the prompt was very simple. Keep the exact same person, identical face structure, figure measurements, preserve the exact body type and proportions, and that generation failed, and it failed more than once. I tried this again to see if maybe it would go through on the second shot, and it did not. So I say all that to say, if your reference character is too thick, it's likely not going to play well with Google Nano Banana Pro. And to perform a similar test for yourself, all you have to do is click here on this image button. It's going to give you an option to upload from your local file or select from your image generation history if you had been generating images within Kling itself. But it also does keep track of what you've uploaded, and you can find that in your Uploads tab or the Creatives tab. And so what I'm going to do is just select the one that I'd already been working on just to show you how that works. And what I like is that it references the reference image by calling it out right here. And this is where you drop your prompt. So let me just copy this right quick. I'm going to paste it right here. And as you can see, it's pretty cheap right now to work with this image editing model, only costing me 1 credit per image. I've got this set to 2 outputs, so that's 1 credit each. And that's not bad at all, especially considering that it's 13 cents per image with Nano Banana Pro and up to 24 cents per image to get a 4K output with Nano Banana Pro. Okay, now we want to iterate on the image, and I'm going to go through my standard framework for going through this to where we're going to take the reference image and change her into something completely different. And what I did was I used Claude to give me an Midjourney prompt to get a fantasy huntress, and these were some of the images that I got. And out of all of these, hey, that's not bad at all, right? But out of all of these, this is the look that I settled on. It looked a lot closer to what I was going for. And for the prompt, I didn't want any weapons or anything like that. I want to add those separately to continue to test out the model. And in my testing, it's just a lot cleaner to do it separately because whatever generates in terms of the weapon, say for instance, you wanted a sword or a dagger, you're pretty much stuck with what it gives you, although you could still generate what you needed and just have it swap out with a dagger you may have generated separately. But again, I like to keep things very clean so that the AI doesn't get too confused. So again, once I got the look that I was after, I just took the exact same prompt and used it with a reference image. Again, in my previous testing, if you try to take this image and then just say, hey, swap out my reference character with the person and keep all the attire and things like that, the AI does get tripped up. And you saw a example of that in my previous video on Nano Banana Pro. So again, Midjourney just to get an idea of what the look will be, and then just taking the prompt and matching it with the reference character. And I'm going to show you a trick because this can get a little bit confusing when you're trying to add your reference image to the O1 Omni image model. If you were to just say set as reference, it switches this over to Kling AI's image 1.5, which is not the O1 model. And it took me a minute to figure that out. So what you'd want to do instead is just to hover your mouse over the image right here and just click apply. And it now shows up down here ready for you to add your prompt. And so I told Claude which prompt I wanted to use, and it loaded my look development framework to give me essentially the Nano Banana prompt, because again, there's really no difference between how you prompt for this versus Nano Banana versus Quinn versus Seedream Edit. They all understand this type of prompting structure. And so basically this is the exact same prompt I used. I'll just copy that here and I'll paste it right here. And again, it's referencing the image 1, which is the only image here. And you'd click generate, and this is what I got. And out of these two, I would say this one is the one that remained most faithful to the body composition. And if we compare it to the reference image, I would say that is a pretty flawless transfer. For this model, it worked out perfectly. And so now that we have the new look, we're just going to continue testing by iterating on the image further. And for this, Claude gave me a couple of options. I could generate the bow separately and the quiver with the arrows separately, or I could have both in one image and have the AI sort it out. And since I'm testing this out, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to just give it an image like this that has the bow and the quiver with the arrows and see if the AI could figure it out. And since I want to continue iterating off of this image right here, the only thing I would do is click this arrow right here. It applies it to the box down here. And then I also want to bring in the image from Midjourney for the edit. So if I click here and I click upload, you can pull it from your local drive, but I've already got it here since I've already been working on this stuff. And let's just say this one right here, because that's the one I used. And note here that the prompt structure is a bit different. So if you only did this and then dropped in the prompt, it may not make sense. because you're not really giving the AI any information about what goes where. So notice how I call out image 1 and I'm talking about the character, and then I say in her right hand she holds a fantasy curved bow with dark wood limbs from image 2, and then further descriptions of the quiver filled with wooden arrows from image 2. So again, you're going to have to guide the AI on where all this goes, and maybe you can just drop in the prompt and see what happens without doing what I did here. But you can't be upset with the results if it doesn't come out exactly how you want, because again, if you're not giving the AI any direction, it's just going to do whatever it wants. Now, I generated that, and this is where we start to run into where things begin to break down. This was the first image that generated, and it wouldn't be bad except for this feather right here. I don't know where that came from, and it doesn't really make sense in the image itself. And this was the second image, and again, this doesn't make sense with this arrow already here, but her finger's not even on it, and the quiver doesn't even look like it's properly strapped onto her. As you can see, this little harness goes through and behind her with the cloak draped over, and it's not even connected to this in any way. And I am starting to also notice some breakdown in the facial features right here, and there's more unwanted artifacts on her skin and in the clothing itself. And so I said, okay, let's give it one more shot. This was the third image, and again, this bag right here just doesn't make sense. It's kind of partially hanging on, but aside from that, the rest of the image doesn't look too bad, and this one didn't turn out too bad either. It still doesn't look like this quiver is connected truly. It's just kind of back there with this strap going across her chest, and they switched the hand that the bow is in. Now, I'm right-handed, and if I were holding a bow, I would be holding the bow with my left hand and pulling the arrow on the string here with my right hand, and this is her right hand, so it's not too much of a big deal. But as you'll see when we get further into the testing, it's not going to remain consistent. And for comparison, I took the exact same reference image and weapons reference image into free pick and used Nano Banana Pro, and to be honest with you, this image just looks a lot better. The quiver actually looks to be attached to her, and it's on the correct side, because if she's going to reach for an arrow, she's going to be reaching right behind her to grab it right here, and the bow is in the left hand. And so by now you should understand the cadence. We're just continuing to iterate on the image to see if it continues to hold up or if it starts to break down. So I'm going to quickly run through the rest of the testing I did with this reference character using Kling AI O1 Omni image, and for whatever reason I continue to iterate off of this image right here. Even though the bow in this hand and the quiver in this hand doesn't make sense, I wasn't really paying attention, but it's not going to matter in a moment as I'm going to show you. And so the next thing I did was a scene change. I wanted to change this plain background and put her in a fantasy forest setting, and this was the result of that prompt. Again, it does look like the face is starting to break down some, and despite me calling for photorealistic in the prompt, this kind of looks cartoonish, so I don't know about that one. And this was the other image, which looks a bit better, but you'll note that the quiver starts to break down right here, and it was actually the same thing happening in this image right here. So we start to lose some details with this bag, but I do like how the sun is peering through the tree canopy, and overall the background image looks a lot better than the previous one. Comparing that to Nano Banana Pro, I would say Nano Banana Pro is the winner here. To me, just looking at her feet, it looks like she's actually in this forest and not just placed in it. And look how the sunlight highlights the back of her cloak, which would make sense because the sun would actually do that in real life. But if you compare that to what Kling gave us, you don't get that same effect. I then wanted to change this to a close-up scene with her holding the bow in her hand and about to launch an arrow. And this image was not too bad, but if you noticed, the quiver got switched from the left-hand side to the right side. And then you also start to notice these artifacts show up on her skin. So that's definitely no bueno. And with this image right here, the quiver does stay on the side that it was originally on, but I don't like how this is going across her face, even though that may be factually correct. I'm not an archer, so I don't know. But either way, you still start to get these artifacts on her skin, which just doesn't look good. It's probably going to look even worse if you turn this into a video. Comparing that to Nano Banana Pro, this is much more what I would expect, but there are some issues with this image. For one, the bow itself is on the opposite side of this bow, and it should be on this side right here. So it should not be on the opposite side over there. That really doesn't make any sense. If you're shooting a bow, which I have done when I was younger, this would be coming across this handle right here, just like in this image from Kling. This is the correct position for that bow and arrow, but Kling did run into that same problem as well. I also noticed notice that the number of arrows in her quiver shrunk. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, whereas right here, if we were trying to keep everything consistent, that wouldn't make sense because she's got plenty of arrows right here. So these AI models are not without fault. Even with the best on the market, you have to keep that in mind and use your AI eye when you're trying to achieve continuity in your scenes. And so now we're going to look at the testing I did with the Kling O1 Omni video model. And for that, you're going to want to come down here, and all you want to do is flip this to video generation. And how to think about the video model is basically to think of it as Nano Banana Pro for video. It also has a user guide that you can check out. If you flip it to the video generation model and you click here, this page opens up and it gives you front to back detail of everything that it's capable of. So you can definitely check that out and read through it at your leisure. But for my testing, the only thing I wanted to do was combine my reference image character that I have been building here and adding another reference character and placing them in the same scene doing various things. And from that, you may remember this reference character from the previous video I did on the full breakdown of Nano Banana Pro, and I wanted to depict the two in various scenes in a fantasy AI narrative film. And for that, I'm just going to delete this right here. You have the same options. You can add elements, either things you've built or some of the presets that Kling has, or you can click here and upload an image, or you can upload a video reference. And if I remember correctly, any video reference that you use can only be 3 to 10 seconds long. But again, you can read that guide and find out any and everything you want about this video model when you perform your own testing. And so again, I'm going to select from my history just to show you how I got everything into the model. I basically selected this image and this image right here that I uploaded, and you hit confirm and you've got them both right here. Now, the other thing I like about this setup is it basically just keeps a running history of everything that you've done. So not only the reference image, but the prompts themselves. And I'm going to scroll down to the first thing that I did. And so this was the prompt that I used. And the one thing that I did not do was what I told you earlier, which was to call out specifically who is what. But interestingly enough, since the prompt did a good job itself describing who was what, for instance, a white armored paladin kneels before a glowing altar while a hooded huntress in green stands at the temple entrance, the AI ended up figuring it out. But if I thought about it, if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do it exactly how I told you, to where I would basically say at image 1 kneels before a glowing altar while at image 2 stands at the temple entrance left frame. Now this is what I got from the first run, and honestly it doesn't look good at all. The faces definitely don't hold up, and it looks like the woman paladin is kneeling towards the huntress when she should be kneeling toward the altar. Now the way I envisioned this scene was that the camera would be reversed and it's showing the face of the paladin kneeling at the altar and then the huntress in the background in an over the shoulder shot, but that's not what happened. And the second iteration, again, it still looks like she's kneeling toward the huntress. So this was an absolute fail. The next scene was a wide shot crumbling stone bridge over glowing magical chasm. Paladin right, huntress left, weapons lowered but tense. Purple arcane energy swirls in the abyss below. This was the first image, and it almost looks like that scene with Sasuke and Naruto when they're fighting in the valley in Naruto, the first version. And again, it doesn't do a really good job with the faces. And I don't know if you'd call this a crumbling bridge. It mostly looks like a crumbling wall. So that's no bueno. Here's the second iteration. This one looks a lot better. It aligns more with the prompt itself in terms of the crumbling bridge. And I like how the two are walking up toward one another. And they do have their weapons lowered, but it does look like a tense scene. But I will say they just threw that purple stuff down here, but it does appear to be flowing somewhat. This was the next scene. Dynamic tracking shot, forest clearing in eclipse twilight, eerie blue-gray light, huntress in green cloak crouches behind moss-covered log, drawing bow aimed off camera left, paladin in white armor charges from background left, glowing sword raised, mid-swing, determined expression, camera dollies right to left following paladin's charge, eclipse corona visible through canopy. Now honestly, none of these scenes made sense to me at all. For instance, she's running out of there from behind and she's turning and facing the huntress. Don't really get that. And the bow really doesn't look like anything compared to the original. So that's a fail. And this one right here looks pretty silly as well. Like the huntress's face changes and it looks like she's sitting down, and then the paladin's just charging forward. We're like, hey, okay, what do I do now? Her face also doesn't hold up. This scene is a little bit better, but as you see the paladin charging forward, sword. Her sword is all wobbly and it's just kind of rubbery looking. And again, the faces just do not hold up. Again, it was just pretty much the same with all of the generations that I tried. They all just look pretty terrible. And again, the biggest factor being that the faces just don't hold up whatsoever. This was another scene that I tried. I'm not going to read through the prompt, but you know, it was pretty much the same with every single generation. Faces do not hold up, but the camera movement itself was pretty dynamic. And as you can see in this shot, the Huntress does not have her bow and the Paladin doesn't have her sword. And in this scene, the Huntress does have her bow and the Paladin still does not have her sword. And again, the faces look crazy. And for this scene, it was supposed to be the Huntress releases an arrow that flies past the Paladin's head, and the AI just did not get the assignment. In either of these generations, they just look crazy. This was supposed to be a slow motion shot. They get the slow motion correct. And again, the camera movement is very dynamic, but it just doesn't know what to do with the prompt. And since this is the first version of this model, hopefully all of this will get improved over time. And before I forget, each video generation costs about 40 credits. So let me do something right quick. I'm going to take this prompt and I'm going to drop it in the prompt box. And as you can see, if I were to generate 2 outputs of this at 5 seconds each, which is what I did, using the professional setting, it would be 80 credits. So again, just wanted to quickly demonstrate the new Kling O1 Omni image and Omni video model, just to give you an idea of what this model can do, how the image model compares to Nano Banana Pro, and what the video capabilities and quality of this model looks like. Is this something that you're planning to test out for yourself, especially given that the image editing model here is almost 100 times cheaper than Nano Banana Pro? Let me know in the comments below this video. And as always, if you found this review helpful, be sure to hit that like button and also be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you let YouTube know that you enjoy videos like this and that you want to be alerted about the next video that we upload. Once again, my name is Paul Maximus. Thanks for checking out this video. Please join me in the next one.